Okay, we're round 2. Round 2. Let's see if this works again. Hey, Morgan. Okay, everyone's coming back. I was like, what's happening? My phone literally flew off of my stand. Okay, let's try this again, Tracy. Here she comes, everyone. Let's hope that the same thing doesn't happen. Okay, try this again, Tracy. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
It's technology.
Technology. What are you gonna do?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's just start over.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the States. Last time Tracy and I talked, she was in Ireland, so now she's back stateside.
Yeah.
So I thought what we would do tonight, I got a lot of awesome questions from my followers about labor and pain with labor, and some really great questions about like what can they do to reduce pain, epidurals, all of that good stuff. So we can chat about that. But why don't we talk a little bit, Tracy, why don't you introduce yourself a bit? Tell my followers kind of what you do, about your app, and then we'll talk a little bit. And I just want everyone to know that I like fangirl so hard over Tracy and everything that she does for women. And I just love her so much. And oh, thank you. Okay, so Tracy, tell us a little bit about who you are and about your app.
Yeah, so I'm originally trained as a midwife, but kind of started off as a doula, which maybe some of your followers are birth doulas as well, and moved into midwifery eventually because I figured it was, we have an Irish saying, in for a penny, in for a pound. So I thought I'd gotten as far as I thought I could get with my doula work, and I wanted to take it to the next level, and I wanted to have the opportunity to offer the full care package. So
right.
The midwifery care and the support. And so I found myself being, I guess, deciding between going back to school and doing midwifery and psychology, because I was fascinated and continue to be fascinated by the brain and by behavior. And that's why we're going to talk a little bit about pain later on.
Yes.
So I taught another quite popular program that involves hypnosis for birth, but I found it was lacking in areas around talking about pain. It happens to a lot of people, and we shouldn't shy away from talking about normal pain and labor and all of the amazing things that we can do to control pain. An epidural, or if an epidural is part of your toolkit, then absolutely use it. But we've got lots of tools that we can use. So for me, I really needed to give parents more tools than just hypnosis. Although I will say hypnosis is a fantastic tool and it works brilliantly for a lot of people, but sometimes not so well. And I'm sure you'll agree with me here, giving parents as many tools in their toolkit just makes sense. And they feel more in control because they've got, I have this buffet of tools and I'm going to try one. And if this one isn't helpful, I've tried something else. So I just felt like we wanted to give families more options. So that's kind of where GentleBirth emerged and evolved. And we use, it's really what I call brain training for birth. So we don't just use hypnosis. Hypnosis is a cornerstone of the approach, but we also train parents in very simple mindfulness approaches. We have a section in our classes on sports psychology, because when we look at, we call it the head edge, and we look at what do elite athletes do to prepare for a big event. And this is one of the biggest events of your adult life. So why wouldn't you be mentally prepared for it and really just stack the odds in your favor of it going great?
Yes. I love that analogy so much, because I talk about that a lot too when we talk about postpartum recovery and training for birth physically. I use that analogy all the time. Like, what are we doing for our athletes, and how are we rehabbing shoulders and knees, and what are we doing for baseball pitchers and soccer players? And we're doing all this stuff for them, but we're doing nothing for the mama. And like, I would say that a 24-hour labor plus a delivery is like a little harder than a 2-hour soccer game. But I mean, that's just me. So it's like, so I think that like if we start thinking about how we're approaching the birthing person, both from a physical side and a mental side, it makes complete sense to me as a PT that we would train for it the same way that we do mental training and mental practice and all of the things that have shown to be effective in the literature, like the same way that we do for our athletes. So I love that analogy, and I love like the science behind it and the psychology and the neuroscience. And this is all like proven in the literature. It's like, it's real, which is so amazing because we're seeing so much change with pain science and neuroscience and all that stuff. It's like fascinating to me.
But the thing, and you see this in your work as well, is that there's so much of this emerging research now in pain science and pain education.
Yes.
But it hasn't crossed over into the birth world yet. And parents aren't getting this information.
Why do you think that is?
I think we're still kind of stuck in that there's different, I guess, models of kind of pain paradigms,
Right.
There's the medical model or theory of pain where it's tissue based, and
yes,
we think of pain in labor as a bad thing and as pathological, and we need to just eliminate it as quickly as possible. Whereas there is the other approach, which would be much more a working with pain model, and the psychosocial model, where we look at the research and we can see that there's so many factors influence pain perception in daily life, but in labor, that parents aren't getting information to understand, okay, so maybe I'm more prone to this kind of pain based on.
Interesting.
It's fascinating. Even the expectation of pain. So if you were walking into labor and all you've heard are horrific, traumatic birth stories, and that was what you grew up with, your expectation is that it's something horrible, that I will not be able to cope. And that expectation makes it more likely that you will need pharmacological pain management.
Right.
And there's nothing to say that I think epidurals are an incredible tool to have as part of your toolkit. But when we look at other things that influence pain perception, your level of focus. So sometimes in maternity unit, if there's strangers coming in and out of the room, and you're in an environment that your brain doesn't feel safe in, even though you might think, yes, the hospital is the safest place for me. The fact that you're in a vulnerable situation with strangers around you and bright lights and sounds and smells you're not familiar with, it gets that stress response a little bit, triggery to say, oh, okay, no, this is something maybe we need to be worried about. Even our attachment styles impacts our pain perception. A really interesting project there a couple of years ago looked at people who catastrophize around labor pain. So if any of your followers tonight are prone to this habit of, oh, I'll be the one that's screaming for the epidural, even joking, if that is part of your belief system that, oh, that'll be me, you're more likely not just to need pharmacological pain management, but you're more likely to experience more perineal pain after labor.
That's crazy.
So your self-talk, and this is part of what we do with GentleBirth, your self-talk, and starting to, and it doesn't mean we're not talking about becoming the thought police.
Right.
But just tuning into, okay, so I keep saying this to myself, I'll be the one screaming for the epidural. I was like, we might want to challenge that thought a little bit, and challenge it, especially if it's a habit of thought that, we just kind of laugh it off. I'm like, yeah, I want to look at that a bit closer, and start to, when we talk about like imagining yourself in labor, so many parents are really good at visualizing the kind of birth they don't want. So, and it is a habit of thought, and it's part of that, what we call the negativity bias. The brain is when the brain has a bias towards pain. So because it's thinking threat and we need to survive, and so when the brain is, coming across signals that it associates with, oh, this is bad, we're going to amplify that pain perception. Compared to if we have the brain in a more settled state and we don't have the amygdala firing off thinking pain is really bad, but pain is productive in labor, that it's progressive, and it's actually, it's hard work, but it can be manageable and we can cope. And the fact that the longest surge, the longest contraction is probably only going to last 1 minute,
right,
then we know that, well, if we break it down, it can be manageable. And of course, we're talking about somebody who is having a straightforward, spontaneous labor with a baby in good position. Because
healthy, right?
Yeah, there's many different factors that influence physically, that influence pain perception, but the brain decides. We don't have pain receptors in the uterus, and we're back to that old pattern. And the idea that hurt equals harm.
Yes.
But we know that's not true, because if we look at, like there was some research done on people, women who'd had mastectomies. And what they found was between about 30 and 50% of those women who'd had a mastectomy still felt sensation in the breast and sometimes felt pain. But if the breast wasn't there, the brain decides, and not the uterus. The uterus has no pain receptors, but it has stretch receptors. It has pressure receptors.
Right.
So there's just so much what the brain decides, and that we're not saying that labor pain is all in your head. Right. But it kind of is, because when the signal reaches the brain then
interprets it.
Little discussion about, is this something we need to be worried about or not? And if we're preparing for something that we need to be really worried about, then that pain perception increases. But
that's so
brain the other way, we reduce that pain perception.
It's so interesting because we learn all of this in PT school when we look at the neuroscience of pain and patients with persistent pain. And there are studies that show, and this, that when we just educate our clients and our patients on the science of pain and the neuroscience, that their perception of pain decreases, which is so fascinating to me, because I love Lorimer Moseley, who's a PhD. I know, amazing, right? He's a PT kind of, and he went back after PT school to get his PhD in neuroscience because he was just fascinated by persistent pain and why does somebody feel this level of pain with some injury and somebody doesn't. And so he has his research, and David Butler and all those guys out there. It's so fascinating. And he says the exact same thing. This anticipation of pain will increase our perception, and pain is an output of the brain. And the analogy that he uses, and which I say to my patients all the time, and it really helped me understand pain, was that it was when you stub your toe or hit your foot on a rock, pain doesn't jump out of the rock and into your foot. It's your brain interpreting those signals. And it's not saying that pain isn't there, but it's how can we manage that, and how can we change the conversation in our brain and the mirror neurons and all those things that are happening in there to make it, at least in the context of labor, not a bad, dangerous thought, or the anticipation that oh my God, this bad, danger, and then everything just starts going crazy, and then your pain increases. So why do you think, I don't know how to phrase this, but do you feel when you work with your clients and you're preparing people and helping them train for delivery, that the perception of pain is that it's always bad, or that there's always a negative association with pain, and that it means something bad is happening, or I'm in danger, or something is not right? And how do we change that for somebody that's going into labor or into birth?
Well, I think education is number one. We have to share information with parents, so understand the science behind it, that this is not woo, This is like, there is really great research behind it. And I have a birth story that I'll be sharing on the blog tomorrow. I think you'll find this fascinating as well when it comes to chronic pain. So we had, we're just wrapping up a research project that I was doing with Sinead Dufour in Master University on pain education and using the GentleBirth app for their daily training. And I got this birth story from a mom in South Africa, and she had, I think it was curvature of the spine, fibromyalgia. Her plan was that if she ever became pregnant, she was having a cesarean because she was in so much pain and arthritis and really, really suffering with chronic pain throughout most of her adult life. And she found herself pregnant, and talk about synchronicity, found herself pregnant and got the news in a bookstore as she was about to pick up my book, Mindful Pregnancy. And picked up the book and got the detail that she was pregnant and all delighted. And she used the app, and she had what she described as the most amazing and, how she described, orgasmic birth, and is now almost pain-free
in every other app.
Yeah. So
I mean, what do you? I mean, like, you should just retire. Like, that's like I've done it.
These messages, it's like, and she just, everything in the pain education video just resonated with her. So she understood more about how her brain processes all of this pain, and when she's stressed, how it amplifies. And so learning how to manage her own mind gave her this like a life-changing freedom.
Yeah. Right.
Like, even her doctors are amazed that we don't know what to make of you know.
Well, I think it's just testament that and like, there's so much we don't know about the brain in general, and just how powerful it is, and how just amazing mindfulness training is, and all of the things that we know so far about pain science and what's happening in the central nervous system, and just how we can start to apply that in ways that are so beneficial, and how it trickles down to other areas of our life and other areas of our bodies. I mean, I like working in pelvic floor PT, you know, I see clients a lot who have persistent pain, whether they're mamas or not, but like just chronic genital pain, chronic tailbone pain, you know, like that sort of thing. And the mindfulness and the pain education is something that is definitely like a part of the treatment plan, 100%, because like, we know the changes in the brain from, you know, persistent pain.
Yeah, and parents don't realize as well that the brain in pregnancy is even more plastic, which means your brain is changing in pregnancy with or without you. So I always think of it as you have this 9-month window,
right,
to make some really powerful changes in your brain, around positive mood and and noticing your self-talk, and it's just it's that whole, you know, what fires together wires together.
Right.
So creating that daily training with the app is helping parents create a different neural network in the brain around positive birth and expecting it to be different, which then changes their whole perception then on the day. So although I love hypnosis, and I think it's an incredible tool and brilliant in birth, the mindfulness aspect and that focus training is so important, because in labor, if you are, if you know, it's been a few hours and you're starting to get tired, and you know what, if your mind starts to wander off, generally the mind tends to, that train of thought goes to places that we don't want it going to, especially in labor. So mind wanders off to like previous, wondering why didn't I get an epidural an hour ago, to the future of how it's going to go on for. But the more they can stay in the moment and stay focused on this one breath, this one surge, it means the brain isn't allowed that free range to go off and triggering all of that stress response. So we're keeping that focus out. But it takes practice, because most of us can sit here and we could focus for a minute holding an ice cube or whatever, you know. Can you do that for 12 hours? You know, that's why the daily practice is so important. You can't do this by osmosis. It's the mindfulness training is like you're building that muscle of focus.
Right. Just like any other muscle.
Yeah, you can't just show up today and expect,
Mhm.
oh, I'll be okay, I'll be able to focus, unless you've actually trained that muscle. And notice when it's gone off.
Is there like an optimal time that you recommend parents start training this like mental aspect? Is it like, is there ever like an optimal time that you see kind of best results? Is it ever too late? Like where do you love to have people come in at?
Before they're pregnant.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Okay. Yeah.
Again, because like the first trimester is such an important time for the baby's organs growing, and this is like a critical point. And lots of parents aren't, they might be telling people that they're pregnant yet, because well, a lot of people will want to wait for until they get into the second
Right.
trimester.
Right.
So the earlier we can start working with anxiety and reducing that and helping parents sleeping a little better. So with the app, if you join the app now and you're brand new pregnant and you're 6 weeks along, your daily training is going to be quite light. So you might just do a little bit of breathing and some affirmations and probably something just to help you sleep at night, but you're not doing a lot of work as such. But then as your pregnancy progresses, then you'll have different training based on where you're at in your pregnancy. I just think that as I was saying, like most people are mentally rehearsing the kind of birth they don't want. So the sooner we can start shifting that focus over to, well, what would it look like if you had the most amazing birth experience ever? And it's the parents get to define that. So whereas, some programs are focused on, you do this program because you definitely want to have an unmedicated birth. With GentleBirth, it's so inclusive. So we have tools for, if you're getting an epidural, you're getting an epidural, that we have like a whole hypnobirthing session to use while you're waiting on our anesthesiologist to set up, so that you're staying focused and you're able to stay calm. And then after you've had your epidural, sometimes parents can get shakes or fever. So we have a really lovely post-epidural session that you can play to help you rest but stay connected with your baby. And there's a journey for parents who, for whatever reason, are having a planned cesarean. So they need this mental training as well, and learning how to make their mind work for them instead of against them. Because labor is one thing, but then we've got postpartum, and that's really where the rubber hits the road. And we want to make sure parents have these skills and these strategies that they can implement very, very easily without having to lie down on the couch for 30 minutes to do hypnobirthing.
Right.
Who has time for that? They don't.
No one.
But having some really simple strategies to support themselves, self-compassion training as well, is so important for these new parents, so that they're adjusting to this huge transition as gently, emotionally as gently as possible, as they're physically recovering.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you say that, because I feel like so much of what we're doing to prepare parents and birthing persons now, like for delivery and labor, has to also transition over to postpartum too, because like there's always so much focus, and this is a lot of like where my work comes in too. There's always so much focus like during the pregnancy and all this attention on the delivery and all this time, and then as soon as like the baby comes out, oftentimes the mom is like, yeah, that's it. Like forgotten. And now it's like she or he or they are starting to have to learn how to develop this new relationship with this like new human that's a part of their life, and they have to figure out like this whole new parenting thing, and there's all this stuff going on, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, you have to do it by yourself because like you don't matter anymore. And it's like, I feel like if we're prepared, when we're preparing for that time, we have to also think about what's going to happen acutely postpartum, like those, even from like the couple hours, like that golden hour, couple hours, you're still at the birth center, you're still at the hospital, you're there for 2 days. And then what's going to happen those first 24 hours at home? And then what's going to happen those first couple of days at home? And then like those couple weeks, and then we have that, you know, ridiculous 6-week appointment which does nothing, and then like what do we do after that? So all of this training has to be applicable to like the whole to all the phases. It can't, you know what I mean? And that's what's so great about the mindfulness, is that you're able to apply it in all these like new unfamiliar realms, I guess, of motherhood.
And your relationship changes with your partner. You know, it's such an intense. That first year is so intense, and it just the mind boggles that that this is not, this kind of, you know, mental preparation isn't just standard practice. It's just like, why we focus on you know, these, what I feel like it's almost like, well, we're just focused on the uterus and what's in there, and but this really matters, you know, that mental health is so, it's just we just got to do a better job, and especially here in the US, where at least in Europe, you know, we have, you know, a community midwife or a public health nurse comes out to see you in the first few days after you come home from the hospital, and just, you know, now it's mostly for the baby, but at least it's another human that's checking in on you
at home,
but
when you don't have that.
No, it's well, but that's a whole other
I mean, that's a whole other I mean, I could talk about that for
like a few days on that one.
I know that is a whole other thing, but it's the same. I mean, it's exactly the same, and it's that's why we do what we do, Tracy.
And it's and as well, like, and things like, you know, so much of childbirth education now again is so focused on the mechanics of labor, and you know, and look, I like, as a doula and a doula trainer, the double hip squeeze, I teach all of my clients a double hip squeeze. It's a brilliant, but when it's 4 a.m. and your new baby will not latch, the double hip squeeze is not going to help you. When you are ready to throw in the towel and like, can't do it anymore. So it's like, let's give parents skills that really help them adjust and reach their parenting goals, whatever those are for those parents.
And it's so true. It's so different for everybody, and the same for preparing for birth. Like what people want as a positive birth for them is going to be so different than what I consider a positive birth, and what, you know, Sharon considers a positive birth. So I think having resources that, you know, are tailored to that experience are so important and so valuable. And knowing, for all like the pregnant ladies out there and the people that are considering having babies, that like there's no like perfect birth. It's what works for you and your family, and how you're supported, and what resources and tools you have. And the thing that I love so much about what Tracy teaches and what she has in the app is that, Tracy, you say this all the time, like, we leave everything, we don't take anything off the table. Like, we leave everything on the table. So there's, you know, what's coming, and you know what's available to you, and like, you decide what is going to work for you and your family. And I think that's so important, because I mean, I know in the last 11 years of doing this type of work is that mamas tell me all the time, like, oh, I had to have this, and like, I feel so, you know, guilty about it, and I had this in my birth plan and I didn't go, and I feel like a failure. And it's like they attach all these like negative emotions to it, and it doesn't have to be that way. There's no, you know, something to compare to. Is like, I don't know if that's always helpful. I mean, how do you coach women on that when you're talking about like the standard or a positive birth?
Well, I mean, our approach has always been that a positive birth comes in many forms and is defined by by the birthing person and nobody else. Nobody else has an opinion on it. But what I do see is, and it's so hard on these parents, that something came up during their birth and changed the path of that experience, that I don't want any parent to ever come away from a birth experience feeling guilty that they used an epidural or use a tool. Because an epidural, you know, there's so much focus on the epidural is, you know, it's an intervention, and like, but you know, sometimes it's a solution. Sometimes it is what that parent needed for that birth, and that's why the book learning about epidurals and the risks and it's all very surface level information.
Right.
But when you have, and again, we're kind of going back to the active practice of the experiential practice of self-compassion as being a which diffuses shame and guilt, and being able to, you know, hold that space for yourself and not
Mm-hmm.
have someone else to do it. That, you know, I used all the tools in my toolkit, and the epidural absolutely made sense for me in that moment. And you
Right.
have that epidural, and you come away from that birth feeling like, you know, I had the best experience for me today. And there is some really good research around mindfulness being protective of mental health, and being a modifying factor when it comes to birth trauma. So
Mm.
when we can step back, because and I see it a lot in the birth world, that this that a lot of birth professionals attach meaning to the epidural as epidural bad. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can just see it as a tool in the toolkit, then, and if parents can just see it as a tool in the toolkit, and I mean, if you really want to have an unmedicated birth, that is really important to you, then you're going to stack the odds in your favor. You're going to do what you can to create the best environment mentally and physically and around you to have that experience. But if something comes out of left field that nobody could have predicted, that you have tools to emotionally nurture yourself and support yourself through
Yep.
that transition. So even sometimes when I speak to parents who, on paper, might look like a really difficult birth experience, but they say, you know, everything I learned, and being able to stay focused and know I was meeting my baby, it just changed everything. And that emotional resiliency that they've been building through their pregnancy stands to them so much after the birth. No matter what happened on the day, they have tools for that self-compassion and self-kindness, and
Mm-hmm.
which as new moms we find really hard to do. And
Really
again,
hard to do.
you know, these should be skills taught, you know, in school, so that we're not just
Right.
learning in you know, the couple of months of pregnancy.
Right. For sure. For sure. What do you think, or what do you see in terms of like physical, I don't know if like the word is hindrances, but like what what can like mindfulness help somebody who's having a baby? Like how does that, I don't know how to word this, but how does that change, like how does that manifest physically? Like we know that if we have increases in stress, sometimes that can, you know, decrease progression of
Yeah.
labor. And so like what's the link between, I guess, the positive effects that are manifested physically when somebody's been practicing mindfulness and is focused and is in this kind of like positive headspace? That
Well, I
was a
mean,
long question.
yeah, no, I mean, but it's when there's some really good research looking at mindfulness and even short mindfulness interventions. So people who haven't been, you know, practicing for a long time, that it can have a significant impact on acute pain, which we would consider
Okay.
labor pain,
Yep.
as well as chronic. And part of that is you're starting to notice what's happening in your mind. And I think, you know, I mentioned it before, with mindfulness, you're not controlling your mind. You're just starting to pay attention and be what I call the nosy neighbor of your mind.
Yep.
Because if we don't pay attention, it's off, you know, telling us you know, we're going to be a really bad mom, that we will never be able to breastfeed, and it just that internal voice usually is not very positive.
Right.
But what most people don't realize is that that internal voice is sorry, my 10-year-old is working. Is that internal voice, when it's negative, it's almost as if, like, if you're walking down the street tomorrow and somebody shouted an insult across the street to you, you'd be quite flustered and like stressed. And but when we say the same things to ourselves, that, oh, my favorite is, I'm really bad at math, you know, and I've always been bad at math, and it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I will say things to myself, and, you know, I won't use some of my Irish verbiage here tonight because it would be quite offensive, but some of the things I say to myself are offensive, and I would
Right.
never say this to somebody who was struggling with math, but I think it's okay
Right.
to say it to myself. So
Oh, such a good point.
So
Such a good
noticing
point.
the self-talk is really important, and noticing where your mind goes to, because it's a great time traveler. So it's
Yeah.
always on the go. And when we're in that focus state, the mind doesn't get that chance to run off into areas that are going to trigger that amygdala and that stress response.
Mm-hmm.
And when thoughts do come up, stressful thoughts that come up, because they will, and it's not about stopping thought, that you notice it's like, oh, now I'm thinking about pain in labor. Okay. So what you can do when you notice I'm having a thought of pain, or I'm thinking about I won't cope in labor, that we notice the thought and we notice it as a mental event that's passing like the clouds, and we don't engage with it. The trouble happens when we engage with it, and then we go off down this rabbit hole of, what if I can't cope? How long will it take? And what if I had tearing? And oh, it's just, then we're off, and the amygdala is,
Mm-hmm.
is very excited now, and the adrenaline is starting to pump
Mm-hmm.
out. So
Mm-hmm.
it's noticing the thought. It's like, okay, yeah, but not engaging with it, and reminding ourselves that thoughts are not facts. That we
Mm-hmm.
don't have to believe everything we think, and because
Mm-hmm.
the brain is it's a great guessing machine. So
Mm.
it tries to predict what's going to happen based on past
Past
experience,
experiences. Mm-hmm.
the environment, and so, and it'll just fill in the gaps, but it's not that clever really. And it can, when it comes to labor, if all that mind and brain have learned is this is really bad, and
Yep.
then the mindfulness just helps us steer that. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
without it, the brain will go off in 10 different directions, thinking this is the worst thing ever. And we're
Right.
going to ramp up that pain perception, because you need to be really afraid of this, because it's like as if there's a bear chasing you right now
Right.
when you're
Right.
just having a baby.
Right. 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 Gosh, it's so, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. I can talk about this forever. I feel like it's so interesting because I just had a conversation today with one of the mamas that's in my birth prep course, and she was saying, like, things are starting to get real. Like, I'm starting to think about it a lot, and she went through the course and she's like doing all the things and she's like feeling good about it, and she watched your bonus video in the course and she was like loving it, and she's like, but she's like, what if this happens, and what if this happens, and it's like, I'm like, listen, I understand, like, this is a scary, like, new
Yeah.
situation, and part of it is like, what if it happens, like, then what, like, what do we, like, what's the worst thing that can happen, like, what does that mean, like, how do you feel about that? And she's like, well, I know that I have a plan, and I know that I have you, and I know that I have this support group. And I'm like, right, you already have these things in place. And like that all together should help kind of like be okay with the unknown a little bit,
Yeah.
but also be like, okay, if something happens that I'm not expecting or that I'm not prepared with, like, I still have all these resources, and I know that I'm in control and that I can, and it's just, I think, like, women and birthing persons and parents, like, just like you said, we just don't have those, like, kind conversations with ourselves about this stuff. And I think part of it is that we don't know that we can, and that we're not really taught that we're allowed to think nicely.
And there is this perception that being nice to yourself is weak, or
Right.
that it's, you'll never get ahead, and unless you're cracking the whip all the time.
Right.
But the evidence is that so totally different to that. The evidence shows that when we are kinder to ourselves, when we're self-compassionate, that we reduce the stress response, and we become more motivated, because those parts of the brain that are associated with motivation then have a chance to come online, because we're not in that red zone, that stress zone so much.
Right.
But do you know what's a really great, because coming the last couple of weeks of pregnancy, I will always get this question as well, that, I was doing really well, but now I'm thinking,
oh crap, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. But you know what, you're about to do something absolutely incredible, and if you weren't having a few wobbly moments, I would be worried.
Right.
So totally normal. But what I do, I have parents do this little exercise. If they're having a difficult time with affirmations, because sometimes it can feel a bit fake. And I always say, write your own, because they'll resonate more with you. Is that when it's called the, what do I call it? The wouldn't it be nice if exercise. So instead of, trying to, get this mantra into your head, and it's a nice way of bypassing the kind of analytical, conscious mind. Wouldn't it be nice if, and you fill in the blanks. So, and it's just, wouldn't it be nice if I labored at home until I was 8 centimeters and I did really well? Or wouldn't it be nice if I got the most amazing nurse on the night and she knew all about gentle birth and she was just, so in my corner and it was amazing. Wouldn't it be nice if, and because it's so hard for to sit, so for sometimes to mentally rehearse what does an amazing birth look like for me? So whatever that is for you, to just do that exercise. Wouldn't it be nice if, and just you finish off the sentence and do it a couple of times, and you find yourself just, because the brain can't tell the difference between something you're vividly imagining or something you're actually experiencing. So the more we can feed the brain throughout pregnancy with, oh, wouldn't it be nice if, instead of, oh, I'll be the one screaming for, or I'll be the one that has, this problem. It just helps shift that, again, that those neural pathways over to positive birth instead of those, like it's like, and you know this as well about, if you're, these pathways to scary birth and painful birth are well worn, they're like freeways. It's so easy to go there.
Yeah, because it's there, it's in front of our faces all the time.
Yeah, and we've been practicing the thought for a long, long time. So those neural pathways, it just happens like that. But when I talk to parents in the classroom, I say, well, what would amazing birth look like for you? And they're almost afraid to even let themselves think about it. Well, I can, it sounds great, but what if it doesn't happen? And then I'd feel stupid or disappointed. But we have to start showing the brain something else. So that whole, what if, wouldn't it be nice if this happened? And what we're doing is every time we redirect our attention to, well, wouldn't it be nice if, or I could see myself, in my, Wonder Woman t-shirt and really focused, that it's like, if you're skiing and you're skiing in the tracks and then, it turns into, into a runway, and then you've got a freeway. So then it becomes so easy to go to, oh yeah, wouldn't it be nice if, instead of the default, which unfortunately, the negativity bias, the brain is always going to look for trouble because it's thinking about survival. So we have to gently guide it somewhere else.
I think that's so valuable. And I think it's so important to start that practice of like envisioning what a positive birth looks like for you and your family, and just start changing the narrative, because you're absolutely right. The brain doesn't know the difference. It knows like what it's seen, and it doesn't know that there's another story. And so we have to train it to know that. And so I think that's so good. That's such a wonderful piece of advice, and such a great thing for moms and pregnant people and birthing persons to start to practice at any stage. It's just this, like, wouldn't it be nice? It would be so wonderful if this, and just start to change that story. I think that's so valuable and not talked about. I mean, I was never told that, and I'm in this space, like I work in this space, and
it was simple, and again, if we come back to the athletes, Tiger Woods is not mentally rehearsing missing that last putt at the championship, or it's like, well, how else? Because the brain can't tell the difference. So we want to feed it positive imagery, positive stories. I also suggest parents create a mood board or a vision board, again, and pick images, go in Walmart and get a load of pregnancy magazines and pick out some images, but make sure that the images speak to you. So it has to be, or go online and there's like beautiful Instagram accounts, birth photographers, and have a look at those images, and you know, print them out and put words that, you know, you associate with strength and courage and focus, and put that somewhere you're going to see it multiple times a day. You know, take a picture of it and have it on your phone so you can take a quick sneak peek at it when you're in work. Because you're drip feeding the brain to think, oh, this is actually quite normal. These images of focus and because these images should evoke an emotion. So if you open up that magazine and, you know, they're like, yeah, keep looking. You want an image that speaks to you, because if it speaks to you, then the brain has got a hold of it. It's like, oh yeah, I like that, you know, and the brain, again, we're creating that different expectation. But one thing I will for anyone who's watching this, that visualizing and mentally rehearsing this amazing birth experience, or your breastfeeding experience, or whatever that is for you. This is not about, you know, oh, if I just believe it enough, it'll happen, and about secret, or, you know, just put it into the universe and it'll happen. Because on the day itself, something could come up out of left field that nobody could have predicted. But the conversation that I have with my clients is that, okay, so let's just say something came up out of left field in the day, your blood pressure went up, or something else that necessitated having some extra medical help on the day. Do you think you will regret spending the last 6 months being really excited about labor and looking forward to using the tools, and having this image in your mind of, yeah, I'm ready to do this, instead of a state of anxiety for the last 6 months? It was, none of that time is wasted. We, as we say, you know, in GentleBirth, control the controllables. There's only so much we can control about labor and birth, but we can control how we respond to what's actually unfolding on the day. So the more we can start to see birth as something we're excited about, and mentally rehearsing, you know, day after day, that no matter what happens on the day, we have put those last 6 months, hopefully 9 months, to really good use for our mental health, for reducing our stress levels and reducing the stress hormones that baby is as well. So there is no downside to this.
It's so, it's like, girl, I love it. It's so true too, because it's exactly the same thing that we say, or that I say to my clients too, and the mamas that take my courses for the physical preparation too. They're like, well, what if like I end up having a C-section? What if I end up, you know, going for murder? And I'm like, well, that may happen for sure, but all of this, like, nobody's ever said, oh, I wish I hadn't have learned all of these things about my body and about birth and how to prepare. Like, nobody's ever been like, I had way too much support. Like, you know, it's like, it was just too much support for me. Like, it's always, like, nobody ever regrets it, you know, at any point, because the knowledge and the tools and the resources from both the emotional side of preparing and mental side of preparing and the physical side can only better every level of experience during the birth, during the labor, and after. So it's like, it doesn't, in my mind, like, it doesn't matter how the birth ends up. It's like how you are going into it, and how you're prepared, and how you feel about it, and how confident you are in whatever happens. And like, that's the most important thing. And that's what's like missing so much, I think, when we're starting to like get birthing persons ready for this major event and life-changing situation. It's like, they don't have this as like a standard, like you've said, and like I've said, you know, a million times, like there's no, which is like crazy, but it's just so important that there's all of this stuff is presented to the birthing person and to parents in a way that is like doable and relevant and easy to digest, and it can be applied to all stages of pregnancy and birth and postpartum and all of the things. So good. Oh my God, Tracy, I love it.
We'll have to talk again next month, because I think I was telling you when we spoke the last time, we have a couple of new journeys that are coming into the app now. So at the moment, parents will usually go through the pregnancy, follow their daily training, and then they move into their postpartum support. But there'll be body positive is coming, and wellness. So because parents are always like, well, I missed my sessions, or I missed my practice. So body positive, helping these parents get comfortable in their own skin postpartum, and
love it. Love it, love it, love everything about it. So important, so important. And especially talking from the physical side, like when I'm helping people recover after baby, I tell them all the time, like, this isn't get your body back. Like, we didn't lose your body.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not gone. It's, we don't need to bounce back from anything. You know, we go forward, we bounce forward, we move in this new body, and we teach you how to recover. It's not about like looking like you didn't have a baby. It's about function and health and joy and strength and all of the things that like make you a complete parent. And I think that's so, so important, because so many parents and so many birthing persons are just like, I mean, it's hard transitioning into this role as a mother or as a parent, and then like when you feel like you've lost a sense of who you are physically, like that definitely can impact for sure. But it's like this body positivity thing is so important, and it's so needed.
Yeah.
So good. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Well, Tracy, my favorite time of day today. I was looking forward to this all day. I appreciate you so much. Her app is the GentleBirth app. You can follow on Instagram at GentleBirth Official. She was kind enough to do a bonus video for my Prep and Prevent course, which is my virtual birth prep course. And we have a special exclusive ebook in there for our DT Method Mamas. So she donated that. So if you are pregnant right now, get into my birth prep course. Get into Tracy's GentleBirth Official. It's start before you have the baby, she says. Practicing this mental training, super important. And I just am so grateful for her knowledge and expertise, and she's so wonderful. And I hope that everybody follows her also and looks into her programs. And then I'm going to post this on my in my Instagram live and probably on my YouTube channel, so it'll kind of be everywhere. But I'm sure Tracy and I will chat again. She's so brilliant. Thank you so much. I know things are crazy. You just got back to the States, but I appreciate it so much.
No, anytime. I look forward to it as well. And as you see, like, I'll sit here another hour and we'll just.
I know, me too. I'm like, tell me about the neurons. And everyone's like, oh God, Marcy's talking about her.
I'm just worried, like, are all your followers dropping off? Like, they've gone off into some tangent about.
No. It's no. It's like, it's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Have an awesome night. Stay safe out there. We're getting hit by tornadoes over here in Alabama, apparently. Yeah, it's a little like, ooh. But send me messages or questions if you need us, and I'm sure Tracy and I will be back again to chat more about this in the near future. And I just appreciate everyone. So have a good night, y'all. Thank you, Tracy.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.